We're back, Alphas.
We're coming in hot with inspiring guests, witty banter, and colorful commentary for today's veterans and military community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. Marine Corps veteran and former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Mark Sewell is here. And let me tell you, he was in the Atlanta FBI and spent his career investigating violent criminal organizations like a badass, while simultaneously investigating stolen valor cases, which is really quite interesting too. Mark is a published author. His book, Investigating America's Most Notorious Strip Club, the FBI, the Gold Club, and the Mafia. You're going to want to get a copy of that. But before we get Mark on the show, I'm interested, Joe. You're right there in the Atlanta area. Did you know that the mob was like so close to your backyard?
You know, I'll be honest with you. You know how hard it was to stay out of that guy's radar while he was doing all this stuff?
That's what I was going to say. How many times have you been under investigation, Joe?
I mean, if he doesn't bring me up, if he's not here to confront me, I'm winning. You know, that's the way I see it.
Adam, let me ask you, when you think of the mob, what kind of accent comes to mind?
Goodfellas.
Yeah, like a Long Island, New York kind of
Ray
accent?
Liotta walking through the scene where he walks through the restaurant.
But it's like not a Southern twang, right? It's not like, guys, let me go get these guns. Yeah, that's right.
That's a
I got all these drugs, man.
Mine's a different kind of mob down here.
I don't know. It just doesn't add up to me. Well, we'll have to ask Mark all about that.
I'm no
Joe,
mathematician.
what's your favorite mob movie, Joe?
My Cousin Vinny.
Joe Pesci.
No, honestly, no joke, and it's kind of a guilty pleasure, and it's not even a movie. I am thoroughly enjoying Tulsa Kings.
Never
What?
seen it.
Tulsa Kings? Is that what you're saying?
Tulsa King.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, so Sylvester Stallone. I keep thinking, and look, Sylvester, for some reason you're ever listening to this, please forgive me. You keep proving me wrong. I keep thinking the guy's done, you know? And he comes out with another Rambo movie, and I'm like, bro, hang it up. And then you watch it, and you're like, that's exactly what I want out of an aging Rambo movie. Like, you continue to impress me every single time.
Yes.
Like,
I could not have said that any better. Like the Rocky. Like, come on, are we really gonna do? Gosh, you were great in Balboa.
He just gets awesome. Better and better and better.
How does he do it?
I don't know, man. I don't know. He probably he's some sort of performance enhancing acting thing. I don't know. So if you're listening, I swear I'm a huge fan.
Wait,
not as huge as you, but
what was the Denzel Washington flick that came out not too many years ago, where he helped this young girl who was trafficked? She was Russian.
Equalizer.
Yes,
those are all good too.
That might be one of my favorites.
My favorite from him is Book of Eli, though.
Book of Eli,
yeah. That reveal at the end is like, oof.
Yeah, big time. But once you see the reveal, then you're like, can I ever watch this again? Because the suspense is over.
Yeah, it's a one-off.
He did all those good roles, and then he finally played like the villain in Training Day, like, you know, the bad guy. And then I think he ended up like winning the Oscar for that.
All your other works, they're extraordinary, but this
how great was Remember the Titans?
Yeah, Remember the Titans.
Yeah, so good,
classic.
So good.
So far from the mob movies, but you know, good movies.
I think any role he steps into, he really commits, and you know, he suspends my disbelief for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I think he's a great actor.
You know, because he still sounded so much like Denzel Washington in the Gladiator 2 movie, but he still won me over. You know, I was still, you know. I thought it was an odd choice, but I go into that stuff really open-minded. You know, I thought that Heath Ledger was an odd choice for the Joker, but I think you know, I'm not going to be like one of those people. Oh, I knew he was. No, I was like anybody else. I was like, you know, he's, you know, Knight's Tale. How do you go from Knight's Tale to Joker? My bad.
Also, by the way, Knight's Tale, great movie.
Fantastic.
Very good movie.
Good mob movie.
What was the other like? Mob. What was the rom-com one where he played the?
10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah, it was great. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Who's a dreamboat. I mean, you know, if I like guys like that, or guys. Sorry.
I like guys, but mainly my husband.
Mainly about a 80-20 split.
I like you, Joe.
Thanks, buddy. I can't wait to see you.
Yeah, we'll do a high five.
Jumping slow motion. I
Yeah.
can't jump.
See you
go
at
have to jump twice.
IMCON, Las Vegas.
That's right, baby. That's where all the cool kids
A
will
celebration
be.
of
And us.
military culture. Yeah.
All right. Well, Alphas, please stick around. We'll be back with Mark Sewell right after the Briac. Hey there, Legionnaires and sports fans. This is Joe Worley, American Legion member and Navy veteran, and I am so excited that the American Legion is continuing their tradition of support for the Army-Navy game presented by USAA, the first veteran service organization to sponsor America's game in its 126-year history. That's right. The greatest rivalry in sports just got even more meaningful for veterans like us. We're honored to stand behind the incredible student athletes that are not only competing on the field, but are also committed to protecting the freedoms we hold dear. And through this sponsorship, we're shining a spotlight on our primary mission, Be the One, our fight to end veteran suicide. So mark your calendars, tune in to CBS on December 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern to watch Navy take on Army in this epic showdown. To learn more about the American Legion's involvement in our mission, visit legion.org/Army-Navy game. Let's cheer on our team, support our mission, and show the world what it means to be a Legionnaire. Go Navy!
All right, Alphas. Today we're joined by Marine veteran, former FBI agent, and author Mark Sewell. Mark, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Well, thank you. I consider it a honor to talk to you guys and talk to veterans. So thank you very much.
Mark, thank you for your service, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Of course, I really, really enjoyed diving into your extraordinary, not only military history, but your FBI experience. It's mind-boggling. But I want to start by getting to know you pre-military, pre-FBI. I think you're from Texas originally. Is that right?
That's right. I enlisted in the Marines out of the Houston area. So yeah, I grew up in the Houston area, a town called LaPorte, which is south of the city on the water, down on the Galveston Bay, and recruited into the Marines out of that area.
Now, did you come from a family of military? What brought you to the Marine Corps recruiter in the first place?
Yeah, good question. I do have some family members. I lost an uncle that I never knew in Vietnam, and one of his brothers served in Santo Domingo in the Navy and is a member of the VFW because of that, and a little known conflict down in South America. And then my father tried to serve, but my father only had one eye, but he was very patriotic. And so those things rubbed off on me. Both of my grandfather and great uncle served in World War II. One was in the Solomon Islands. And so got to hear some of those stories growing up secondhand and the like. But after graduating from high school, I went straight into the chemical plants, which is what everybody in South Houston does. Oil is king in Houston, right? And everybody in Pennsylvania goes to work in the steel and coal business. Everybody in the Houston area goes to work in oil. And I did that for almost 2 years and decided I didn't want to do this for the next 30 years. It's a great living and it's great money, frankly. It's probably one of the best blue collar jobs you can get. But I wanted to see the world, and the Marines will let me do that. And so I didn't know a lot about the services. I didn't have anybody in my family that had been a Marine that I knew. I had a cousin, second cousin that was also killed in Vietnam that had been in the Marines. In fact, I just recently got his National Archives back, and I'm looking at this. That's really a neat read. But no one personally to tell me about the Marines. So it was just kind of a blind stab, and I went for it.
That's pretty awesome. How shocked were you getting into basic training? Was it kind of an eye opener? How jarring was it for the jarhead?
Yeah, so it was in 1987, the summer of '87, and I went to San Diego. So I was a Hollywood Marine, as we like to say. I don't know where Joe went to boot camp, in the Navy didn't have San Diego probably going when you went through, right?
Correct. I went through Great Lakes for core school and basic, and then I went over. Actually, I went Hollywood over at Camp Pendleton in Horno.
That's right.
For
You
my
said
field medical
2-1.
service.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. When I went through boot camp in 87, the Marines and the Navy were both sharing San Diego as a boot camp, and it was only separated by a chain link fence. So we could see the Navy could see us. And
I'm
that
sure there
created
was
an
no
interesting
gallivanting
dynamic.
whatsoever
I was gonna
between the
say,
two.
I pictured a Marine and a sailor on
Yeah.
either side of the chain link fence, like no touching. Like, silly.
To answer your question, yeah, it was an eye opener. I don't recall the recruiter ever telling me, what to expect. So, and I was 19 and almost 20, and I was married and had a newborn. So
Wow.
I was a little bit more mature probably than the average 17, 18-year-old. So that 1 or 2 to 3 year difference was noticeable. But it was, to answer your question, it was a welcome to the Marine Corps for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Did you take that experience with you when you transitioned out of the Corps into the FBI?
Yeah, boot camp will stay with you forever, especially Marine boot camp. The things that we learn there, teamwork, you know, once you respect your leaders, kind of like that blind obedience to orders without asking questions, as long as you know in your gut it's the right thing to do. That might be an oversimplification, but just those type of things go with you forever. And I'm glad I got those under my belt for sure.
Hmm.
So I think on my end, there's a special bond, between every Marine and every corpsman ever. It just sort of happens. There's kind of, corpsmen are a lot like Marines in that there are no okay Marines. There's either good Marines or bad Marines, and corpsmen I think are very similar, And I always joke around that what won my Marines over wasn't my cool head under pressure. It was the fact that when they filled sandbags, I filled sandbags. That's all it took.
Yeah.
For it to win those guys over is when work was needed to be done. I didn't run off to to hide anywhere with the other corpsmen. I did work. So
you didn't need to
I do
inventory your
appreciate
med bag. Yeah.
No,
Right.
I carried a
Right.
tiny med
Yeah.
bag, so it wouldn't have took me too
Yeah.
long. I tried to, at least. I had a big bag, but luckily I didn't have to use that one too much. But I do want to say, you've had quite an adventure because you do all this stuff in the military. You get involved in the bureau. You start investigating the mafia. And earlier they asked me what my favorite mob movie was, and I said it was My Cousin Vinny.
How about that?
But how similar in a lot of ways do you think those worlds of deception and motivations behind like the bureau and the mob and these how does all this stuff tie in? Because I feel like we tend to, whether we mean to or not, lean into similar themes in our lives. And I'm curious how that played out for you.
Yeah, similar theme. Definitely there's a connection between the Marine Corps and the FBI. Percentage wise, the Marine Corps is the service that's most represented in the FBI, even though the Marine Corps is the smallest. Then Army, and then Army would be second, and probably Navy, and then maybe Air Force after that. But maybe as much as a quarter of the FBI, if not a third, are probably veterans. Would be my experience and my guess. So I think that there's a reason for that, is because veterans want to continue to serve even if they're leaving the service. So that's why you see so many veterans go into law enforcement and first responders and in this case, federal law enforcement. So yeah, there's definitely a connection there. Now, related to the mob, remember, I grew up in Houston, Texas area. The only mobster I knew was a guy that I used to see on the front page of newspapers and maybe on 60 Minutes, and that was John Gotti. And that was it. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you anybody anything. So when I got assigned to the organized crime squad out of the academy, I got assigned to Atlanta first, and then they told me, okay, you're going to be on our newly formed organized crime squad to tackle some mob issues that the city of Atlanta is happening. I could not have been the least qualified person to take that position coming from Houston, right? But the advantage I had was I had two guys already on that squad that had been in New York and had worked Wise Guys there. One had worked specifically the Donnie Brasco case. So if you watched movies like you're talking about My Cousin Vinny, you know Donnie Brasco. And then the other one had worked John Gotti Sr., that case directly as well. So I learned from the fire hose that those guys brought with them of knowledge.
Well, Mark, I grew up in Texas as well, Dallas, Fort Worth.
Okay.
I spent a little bit of time in first and second grade. We lived in Roswell in Atlanta, just north of Atlanta.
Yeah,
and
sure.
then I live in Southeast Alabama now, but before that we were living in the Willis Conroe area. So definitely been through Beaumont and I-10, several times.
I know where Conroe is for sure.
That's right. Yeah. So I want to focus on mindset a little bit, and really kind of talking about some of the things that you just started to highlight with respect to your early career, kind of mid-career, and then moving over to the FBI. So enlisted Marine to then leader of Marines, and then FBI agent serving at home. And I want to take a quick little detour on this mindset, which is I was looking at your background and saw that you had a tour as an FBI agent in Afghanistan. So I was going to ask you, how does that work? Because I didn't even know agents deployed in support of, maybe if I was paying attention a little bit more, but as an attack pilot, we just had to have our head in the dash 10 so we could, deliver what we needed to. So can you share a little bit about your Afghan and what was the FBI's role in that? And then really, that larger question. Yeah, really the larger question is the mindset shifts that you needed and how one prepared you for the next.
Yeah, good question. Concerning Afghanistan, I went twice, actually. I went in 2008, and there I was assigned to JSOC as an enabler or support. There was a decision made in the late Bush, early Obama administration that we might want to bring back some of these bad guys to America and try them in the U.S. court system, especially if we had connections to direct attacks on the homeland, 9/11 being the obvious. So then the question was asked, well, if we bring them back and we put them on trial, like we did with the 20th hijacker, his name escapes me. But that's an example of putting someone on trial. Who are we going to put up on the witness stand to say, I seized this evidence, I received this statement? Do we want to put SEALs, Rangers, Green Berets up on the witness stand to say, yeah, he told me this when I went into his house and captured him? Probably not, right? So the decision was made that we're going to take FBI agents and attach them to these units that are going to capture these high value targets, and let the agents do the searches of the houses to collect the evidence, and which is commonly known as SSE, sensitive site exploitation. And then let the agents also do the quick interrogation that you get on the battlefield, and any of those statements that might be admissible if you did go to trial, now the agent can testify to those. And they were taking agents that had obviously military experience, so you could fit in and speak the lingo and understand. And then also agents that had SWAT experience from a tactical perspective. So from early 2008 to, it was a 90-day tour with JSOC. So for those 3 months was my first one. Then I came back in late 2009 and again in 2010 to do it again. But by that time, a decision was made by FBI headquarters that that program was going to go away. And primarily the reason is that, well, frankly, we don't think there's anybody left on the battlefield that is a direct threat to the U.S. Mostly Taliban, mostly Pakistan, that Warzai district guys. Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah, that sounds like typical government.
So we were taken out of that. That program ran from 2001 to towards the end. I was one of the last, so about 2009. but I was already on a plane ready to go back again. And I got rediverted to Kabul. And there I was assigned to the Major Crimes Task Force. So we were teaching, the FBI, the DEA, and the U.S. Marshals were teaching the law enforcement agencies in Afghanistan the skills to tackle major crimes. And what we called major crimes were drug trafficking, kidnappings, and public corruption, which were the big three in Afghanistan. So we took officers out of the MOI, the Afghan MOI, Ministry of Interior, and the NDS, which was their version of the CIA, and we combined them into a joint task force. These are not street cops. These are all plainclothes investigators, so to say. Their version of the FBI, their version of the agency that had really been created under the Soviets. And then they had continued to exist. They had their Soviet training, and now they were taking on our training. And I did that for 5 months. I was assigned to the embassy in Kabul, but it didn't live in the embassy. We lived in another compound where we could train better north of the airport there in Kabul. So that was my 2 tours. And if you were to walk into an FBI office, Adam, we have a wall of honor where we recognize all the agents that have died in the line of duty. And there are 2 agents that were killed in World War II, for example, that were on planes in South America when the planes went down for whatever reason. But the question is, why were agents on planes in South America during World War II? And it's all in support of the war effort, chasing spies, whatever it might be. So actually the Bureau has been doing these type of missions in support of the war effort all the way back to World War II, quite frankly. It's not well known. Like you said, you were surprised to see that, but it does have a long history. The mindset is just, I think, kind of like what I already said. Being enlisted, being an officer, being an agent, being a SWAT guy, all of those is a logical step that builds on the previous to get you ready to do the next thing. So the mindset is you relying on your experience that you've got to get you there. One, it gets your foot in the door, and then 2, to execute. So I was well served. My Marine time and my SWAT time on the FBI team served me well in Afghanistan. And the military was very happy to have the Bureau enablers. In hindsight, we built long and lasting relationships.
Mark, I want to shift gears for a second because I think I was really intrigued by with your book, and you talked about the Mafia and the strip club, but there was also an element of human trafficking. And I'm curious, I see, listen, in the ladies' room, never ceases to exist a poster on the back of the door that says, if you feel like you're being human trafficked, or somebody who's being human trafficked, here's a number to contact. I've seen PSAs on different hand signals women can use that are in distress, or to watch out for, those signals that are maybe out when you're out in public. And, for you as someone who's dealt with human trafficking in your career, can you share with alphas and myself with how women end up trafficked in a traffic situation, perhaps what lay people need to look out for? Who do we report to if we suspect somebody's in danger or at risk? Things like that. Can you cover that for us?
Yeah, sure. My experience with trafficking was certainly the first time there was on that organized crime squad, but it wasn't related to the mob side of the house, what we call My Cousin Vinny. It was on that squad. We worked the LCN, La Cosa Nostra, the Italian mob. We worked Asian organized crime, and we worked Russian organized crime. And where I was first introduced to human trafficking was on the Asian organized crime. And what they were doing in the late 90s is exactly what they're doing today. It hasn't changed. And that's a visa fraud. And that's really part of the impetus in the Trump administration to crack down on a lot of these visas, is because what you write on paper to get your visa isn't always what happens when you get off the airplane and start trying to fulfill that mission. And a lot of times that fraud is from the very beginning. It's intentional. And then often that fraud, secondly, would be, well, now that I'm here, I think I've changed my mind. I don't want to fulfill the reason that my visa says that I'm here. But back to your question directly is, we allow through our State Department a certain amount of employees to come in different industries, as you well know, from tech all the way down to custodial, house cleaning and whatever it may be, rudimentary home care and so on. And in the Asian community, a number of females to the tune of tens of thousands come over under the visa program that says they're going to be domestic house workers, or they're going to provide some type of care in that, let's just say in that vein, cleaning and so forth. It's not a skilled labor. And the people that are sponsoring them, and it's all a facade. It's a phony corporation. As soon as they get here, those girls are then put into houses of prostitution or massage parlors. And the only recourse for the girl is to either run, but when you're in a foreign country and don't speak the language, that's easy for you and I to say, run to the nearest police officer. It doesn't work like that. And let me tell you why, because I learned real quickly, a lot of the girls and the guys too are scared of American law enforcement or don't trust American law enforcement because it's corrupt in the country that they came from. All right. So organized crime in Vietnam, for example, has a strong nexus with law enforcement. So we trust our law enforcement. We tell those PSAs that you see on the back of those doors, notify law enforcement. Go to the first guy you see in a uniform with a badge and a gun and tell him you're being trafficked. It's not like that in those countries. For whatever reason, it's not. That's a whole nother podcast in itself. So I saw girls that would get off the plane, their passports would be taken. So that strips them of any empowerment that they think they have. They don't speak the language, and then they're trafficked in that regard. And on our Asian side of that squad, we made a number of cases where we went to houses of prostitution where the girls were literally locked inside the house. They weren't allowed the door, bars on the windows and a guard at the front door. To a less extreme of working in a massage parlor, but the girl can actually make a little money. So now it's kind of enticing to a certain extent, but they still can't run away from it because the bad guys got their visas, got their passport, and they would be lost without that. And they fear they'll be sent back. And quite frankly, the threat of being sent back is more scary to them than the consequences of staying. And and it's hard for us to get our heads around that, right? We take so much for granted being American citizens that we can do this and we can do that, and we have this governmental structure that's going to support us. It's the complete opposite in many of these third world Asian countries. So that was my first introduction. We saw a little bit on the Russian side, but it was really on the Asian side. And we also saw it when we started working black street gangs. We saw it within the black community in the inner city. There was some significant pimping cases that were made in Atlanta from that squad that I'm telling you about. This may shock you, but in 1997, 98, 99 timeframe, it was still a misdemeanor in the state of Georgia to traffic a 16-year-old. Okay. And I think it was 15 and 16-year-old. It was a felony for 14 and below, but it was a misdemeanor from 15 and 16. And the reason for that, I was told, it was an archaic law that was still on the books that basically in the Deep South, people got married at a young age. So if you're going to traffic, which means you're going to include sex. Well, is it real sex or is it marital sex? Is it trafficking in that regard? It's complicated. So they made it a misdemeanor, and it's the craziest thing ever. Well, we, the feds, were able to apply federal felony laws to those 15 and 16-year-old cases. And so we made some, my squad and an agent by the name of Barbara Brown made some just fantastic cases cleaning up inner city, where we took pimps and put them in prison for these felonies that they were committing by trafficking and pimping these girls at that age, when previously they'd been arrested 20 times and released because it was a misdemeanor and over and over and over. Now, today, that's no longer the case. It's a felony. But at the time, in the late 90s, it was not. And that was another one of my first introductions to trafficking. And then, of course, the last part of what you said is it's, and I've already mentioned it, it's really as simple as I said, is go to law enforcement. Any guy with a badge, any guy with a gun, any guy with a uniform, and tell them what's happening. And they know now, because this is such a big issue, they know how to handle that, whether it's within their own agency or who to inform, who to pick up the phone and call, whether it's the FBI or HSI.
Mark, I have a follow-up question. I wondered for the women and men, as you I heard you say there, who are brought in from other countries under the pretense that they're going to be having legitimate work visas and work here in the U.S. and end up in these sad situations. When they're liberated from captivity, are they deported, or do we support them here in the U.S. by offering them citizenship or a path to citizenship? What does that future look like for these folks?
Yep, it's a great question, and the answer is they are offered a path to citizenship. That might be a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but certainly a visa that allows them to stay, whether it's green card. And the way we can do that is, the easy way to do that is there's a number of visas. There's probably, from my limited experience, well over 20 different types of visas, maybe closer to 30. And one of the types of visas it's a reward for providing assistance to law enforcement or to the U.S. government. So it's an easy fix for law enforcement. It's not like we're manipulating it. We're taking advantage of what's there. Work with us, testify, put this guy in jail, and I can get you this visa under this cooperation addendum that already exists. And then that visa can turn into, those are multi-year visas, and then they can turn into permanent residence. They can turn into green cards, maybe not citizenship, but permanent residency and so on. So their future brightens, and it's through that visa, one of those visas that I told you about.
Well, that's great. Do we offer them from mental health therapies or anything like that from their traumas?
Yeah, we work with what we'd call the NGOs or the non-government agencies, the nonprofits. Barbara Brown, the girl I was telling you about, I remember she used to bring these agencies in all the time into our office space. And when she would interview a girl, she would have one of these, mostly a female from another nonprofit, that would come in and provide some assistance, and then be able to take her and give her housing and food and so on. And this was all worked through the court system. This was all worked through the FBI. So these were vetted and trusted people that could, provide them assistance.
Wow, thanks.
On my end of things here, I originally was going to ask you about the stolen Valor thing, but I can't. Mm-hmm. If I've only got one question left, what I really want to ask you is, all this stuff is heavy. You've been through some things, brother, and in this small group of people that you're in right now, we know there's a weight. What do you do for peace? What do you do to back off from some of the things that you've seen and done? How do you recenter yourself with all these heavy things that you've seen in your life? Because I think that those coping mechanisms are what keeps us rolling sometimes and refills our battery so we can continue to do work like what you're doing, like you're bringing light to these things that are so important. So how do you recharge?
Yeah, good question. Because I was kind of oblivious to that till a certain part of my career,
Typical
and that was
Marine,
made aware
yep.
to me. Yeah.
We love you, man.
So
but we know.
Well, speaking of the Marines, the institution of physical fitness is driven into you, right? So that is a to this very day, I'm active in the CrossFit community. I compete in the masters community. Just going to the gym and working out every single day makes a difference for me. So that physical exercise to be able to get rid of stress, mentally, emotionally disconnect, and that's invaluable. Since retirement, now that when you hit the brakes and you start thinking about everything, and to me, writing has become the way out. So I wrote the first book, and I have a Stolen Valor book. Hopefully that'll be published next summer. The book has been written. It's with the publisher now. And I try and tell these stories, even though it may not be the focus of the book. I try and interject the human trafficking that Stacy was just talking about. I try and represent deaths on the battlefield in my Stolen Valor book, even though it's not the focus of the story, because that's a way to vent those things as well and talk about them. So those would be the two answers, I think, is exercise, physical fitness, and for me, it's writing.
Nice. We're very similar in that regard. It's my favorite things too. Stacy does writing too.
Okay.
Well, Joe's
writing.
not saying it, but he has a book out, and he just finished writing book number 2. So
awesome. Yeah. And it's with your time with the Marines, I would assume, or something to that effect.
No, it's sci-fi fantasy. I went the other direction. I've always had people tell me that I should write my story, but I've never. It took me a long time to realize that my story, because my whole thing is like everyone likes to think your story is special, but it's not. I can tell you 30 people that have a story that are way more interesting than mine, but my story is unique. And I think what makes my story special is what I've done with it. And the same thing with you. I mean, career-wise, you probably know a few people have similar career paths, but your impact is unique to you. And that's all we have is that impact and the uniqueness of what we do with what we've been through.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Well, Mark, you talked a little bit about your books, and I'd like to kind of hear, when you're writing those, what you hope, the reader takes away from those. But you also really have just piqued my interest on a lot of things, and I really feel like we could go for a long time here. Maybe have you back on to be able to unpack some more of these things. I think for me, personally, I just kind of want to scale out a little bit into the macro of, what's going on in the U.S. right now from your perspective. You have such, rich perspective. What's the greatest threat that you think that you're seeing, or that that we're kind of facing, right now as Americans? And what is, kind of the FBI's role in that? Is there maybe any kind of misconceptions about what's going on right now, or things, that aren't being illuminated, that the FBI is doing in the background? I'm interested in that because, I think what's going on in the nation is important to understand, because like Stacy was saying, all the way down to trafficking, there's so much that I've learned today, and, in the lead up to a little bit of this, that, it's just something I don't spend a lot of time with. Just being able to know that and be aware, right? And I have young children, 14, 13, 8. How can we be more vigilant? How can we, protect them better? So some of these things that are going on to be able to help support us, don't even realize that. So I would just be interested, whatever you feel, like sharing, what your perspective might be on that.
Well, you remember earlier in our conversation, I mentioned my uncle that served in Santo Domingo. He was a Navy vet. And he is the uncle. My father died when I was young, so he's the one uncle that I've always stayed in touch with from my father's family because of proximity. He's still in that Arkansas, Louisiana area, so we were able to stay in touch. And he loves politics. He loves all things law enforcement, military. He's a great conversationalist and well-read. He once told me, not too long ago, he said, "Hey, Mark, it's 1969 all over again." And if you go back and look at 1969, the rioting in the streets, the political assassinations of Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and it goes on and on. The Vietnam conflict, the riots that came from that, the what's the word I'm looking for? The folks that disagreed and they had to voice their disagreement.
Just the civil unrest that was going on then.
Yeah, civil unrest. Maybe that's a better answer. That was specifically about Vietnam. And and there is so many unique comparisons between 1969 and the present day, even though that is well over 50 years ago. You ask about the FBI and what's their challenges are in this world that might be 1969 part 2 all over again. Some of the things are still the same. In 1969, extreme leftists, the Black Panthers and other anti-government agencies were blowing up government buildings, quite frankly. That extended all the way into the Indian reservations, and we had Wounded Knee, and there were FBI agents killed at Wounded Knee. We've had law enforcement officers killed in post offices that were blown up, police departments that were blown up. And this is 1969. And these same things are happening again in the modern era. Seattle or Portland, for example, law enforcement and government buildings are being targeted. So that is a responsibility of the FBI to investigate. But at the same time, never forget about the Timothy McVeighs of the world. They go far to the right, and how many people he killed in Oklahoma City in 1994, 1995. So now we're pushing far to the right. And a lot of times these two are in response to each other, right? The left is responding to the right on these far spectrums. And the Bureau, again, is responsible for that investigation as well. So the domestic terrorism can be the leftist who wants to destroy the power grid because it's about Mother Earth, or it's the extreme right who wants to blow up a government building because of everything that they think that represents. Okay. So those are the responsibilities of the FBI in that world. But what's changed from 1969 is because I guess of technology and innovation is now bad guys from around the world can reach America better and easier than they could in 1969. So not only do we have this internal threat that the FBI is responsible for investigating, now you have guys from third world country, or from not third world, but other countries that come into America with evil intent, right? And now that's a responsibility of the FBI as well. And that didn't exist necessarily in 1969. There was no extreme radical Islam terrorism in America in 1969. Okay. We saw that in the 1972 Olympics when, in Germany, when the Israeli athletes were taken hostage, but it never came to America. Now it's here. So that's another responsibility that the FBI has. And now let's not forget gangs and drugs. Every day gang members are shooting each other in the streets of Chicago, Houston, any big city in America, right? That's another responsibility of the FBI is violent crime, street gangs, drug trafficking. And then, of course, you can add up all the Oklahoma City bombings, all the post office bombings. You can add up all of the gang shootings in Chicago, and they still do not reach the threshold of the deaths due to drugs, right? The drug overdose, or the drug epidemic in America. That's another responsibility of the FBI. The DEA was created in the Nixon administration to help the FBI target drugs because we saw that it was becoming overwhelming for the FBI to work, and the DEA shared that burden. But it hasn't stopped. It's only gotten worse, frankly, right? So these are all of the burdens that the FBI is carrying today, and frankly has carried for the last 20, 30 years of my career. And it's tough. It's a lot of work. It can be demoralizing in the fact that you sometimes don't think you're winning. You can lock a guy up and there's someone else to take his place, right? Not unlike a battlefield scenario that we would see in Iraq or Afghanistan. You kill a bad guy and there's someone else to take his place. So that's where the FBI is today. And that's kind of my take on that is there. A lot of things have not changed, but some have, but it's still all of the responsibility of the FBI.
Man, Mark, can I just say that was like the most kind of comprehensive top level kind of breakdown of what the FBI faced 50 years ago, what they're currently facing today. I got so many follow-ups. I think I would just want to say how appreciative I am for you coming on here today and sharing that. And I think it would be great to have you back on, in the future to maybe go down. And you have such a great intersection of your lived experience with military service and, first responder, what it's like to do that, outside of the country and then also inside the country. And I think that, there's a lot of sound bites, in the media, and what, alphas and legionnaires and veterans deserve is to maybe better understand, some of those things that are happening like you so well laid out. So really appreciate you for that. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. I'd love to come back. That'd be fun. Yeah.
I second that. You got to come back, Mark.
Okay. That'd be fun. Stolen Valor
I'll
is kind of
third it
my
if it's
passion right
necessary.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, we could talk about that and for sure. And I know your audience would be interested in that as well.
Definitely. You said you have a book on that coming out. When is that coming, Mark?
Yeah, I was able to work some really high profile cases. We're hoping to have it published next summer.
Great.
Mm.
Well, we definitely want to get you when that book is ready to drop. We want you back. Let's talk about that. And alphas, in the meantime, don't forget to get your copy of Mark's book that's currently published, Investigating America's Most Notorious Strip Club. You can get it on Amazon. I'll have that Amazon link in the show notes. I'm sure that it's available on other platforms, but Amazon's pretty easy. And like I said, I'll have that in the show notes along with Mark's social media handles, so you can stay abreast as to the next book. But we're going to have him on the show. It's a done deal. Mark, we really appreciate the time you spent with us today. You are such an interesting individual to talk to, and of course, talking to another veteran is always easy. It just seems easy.
It's fun.
Before we sign off, is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to share with the alphas?
No, thank you for the questions, and we'll do it again for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, brother. You're a rock star. When we get a chance to bring you back in, we're definitely going to have to dive into the book. But I do want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to let our alphas know to stick around for some scuttlebutt after the break.
My name is Dan Wiley, National Commander of the American Legion. This year, the American Legion family is honoring our nation's 250th birthday with the USA 250 Challenge. Participants can choose 1, 2, or all 3 categories, but I want to talk about the one that means the most to me, mental wellness. Like many of you, I know firsthand the struggles veterans deal with when it comes to our own mental wellness. I am so proud of how the American Legion makes mental wellness a priority. Our Be the One mission is designed to increase mental health awareness and decrease the number of veterans lost to suicide. Our Buddy Check program is designed to ensure that no veteran is left behind. These are worthwhile missions that change lives and save lives. You can improve the lives of our fellow veterans when you join the American Legion Family USA 250 Challenge and complete the mental wellness category. Visit legion.org/USA250 to get registered today.
All right, alphas, we hope you had a great break. Now it's time for some scuttlebutt. Stace, what you got for us?
Okay, well, I figured since our guest was combating human trafficking, I wanted to focus my scuttlebutt on that topic particularly. And I found a compelling Reddit thread titled, "I'm a survivor of childhood human trafficking." And I thought I'd share it with all the alphas, and especially for all you alphas out there with tweens and teens that you look after. Listen up closely. This thread is definitely insightful. So the person who posted this, their call sign is at Bunsen Burner, which is a really great tagline. And they went on to say, "I was trafficked from ages 15 to 21, primarily in American Midwest and South." So, it's interesting. What drew me into this post was not only were they that young, but they were from what you would, not an inner city, not a highly populated, they were from rural Midwest and Southern states. Anyway, they went on to say, "I managed to escape and have led a comparatively relatively normal life since. I'm now a social worker and a researcher working on youth, queer youth, and young adults. And let me tell you this as well. Teens and tweens and those who may be non-binary and queer are the highest risk for human trafficking. You think like it's going to be someone in their 20s or whatever, but no, it's these kids that are the most at risk. And anyway, they are focusing on helping children in rural environments. So they asked the public on Reddit to weigh in with any questions, and some of them are very insightful. So let me share with you those. Solid Fact 3761 asked, "How were you trafficked?" And Bunsen Burner responded, "I was introduced to my trafficker by the boy I was dating at the time. He was also, unbeknownst to me, being trafficked as well."
Mhm.
So Jenny Von D asked, "Looking back, were there any warning signs that you think other teen youth should look out for and steer clear of to prevent the same thing from happening to them?" The answer was, "Do not trust adults who think you're, quote, mature and make advances. You're not. They're trying to abuse you. Have adults in your life you can trust to discuss sensitive subjects with." At TapeFlip187 asked, "What made you realize the reality of what was happening? Did someone point something out to you, or did you start making connections? What did escaping entail?" Bunsen Burner said, "My parents kicked me out of their house when I was about 18, and the threat of homelessness was a huge wake-up call for me. Although I didn't connect it to my trafficking at the time, I moved across the country to live with other family, and it was, at least for then, ended my experience with my primary trafficker. It was not a clean break, and when I moved back to the Midwest after a year or so, he continued to traffic me. It wasn't until a few years after that that I started to realize the nature of my relationship with him and pulled away fairly sharply." At Amma Outside the Box asked, "Why did you continue to engage in the activity if you were allowed to go home every night? Why not refuse to go again and tell your parents? I think often we, those uneducated of us, assume someone being trafficked is trapped, like under constant surveillance of their traffickers, or kept hostage, abducted, and so on."
Oh, Stacy, let me interject here. I think that this is a really good point, and this is actually a question that I kind of had because I'm not super familiar with this, and so
Yeah.
I'm anxious to hear what they have to say because that's kind of the impression that I got as well. Was it's almost like you're confined, you're like being kept prisoner somewhere. It's
Mm-hmm.
like some kind of underground network of kind of trafficking. So this is illuminating.
Yeah, and so they went on to say, "I can only speak to my personal experience, but the answer is obviously complex. I was not a particularly athletic or thin kid. I was just a normal looking freshman in high school. I was obviously queer, so girls didn't pursue me. I was raised in a very rural farming community. I certainly didn't have an adult I could look up to or talk to about my sexuality or other normal teenager experiences. I was raised in a religious home where sex was generally taboo, largely a sin, and only to be engaged in as an adult with a person I was married to. Then all of a sudden, there was an adult man who thought I was cool. Here he was, an adult who listened to me. So I thought he cared about me, all of my dumb teenager stuff I hadn't other adults to talk to about. And he said I was attractive, something that particularly no one else in my life had ever said to me. He told me that my feelings about my body and sex were not only fine, but were great, and that he was also into it. After that, I think it's pretty obvious. Being socially isolated, receiving poor messaging about my body and my identity, an absence of trusted adults, all were a profound risk to my childhood abuse and trafficking, and speak to the need of proactive and preventive approach to trafficking rather than a reactive one." I remember also reading that throws fairly long, so I had to abbreviate it. But the parents were disengaged, and he even told his parents about being sexually intimate with an adult, and their parents thought it was a gay thing. And so they brushed it off and didn't drill down further. They instead punished them instead of talking to them and looking into it further. And so it was more of a brush off. In terms of the being held hostage thing, they were coerced. So it was coercion. And while they would go home at night, there became this codependency on this adult who they thought cared truly about them, and went back and was allowing this adult to use and abuse them. And ultimately, a lot of trafficking looks like this, where it is sexual exploitation through coercion, and it's not forced in the sense of physical force so much as mental. And
So is it trafficking if it's just that one adult in her? I mean, I understand the abuse there, but my understanding was trafficking is like he helps to direct her towards, you know, others.
They did.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they did. I think they would take them to a truck stop, and you know, it was just, it's pretty graphic. I'm going to have the link in the show notes if you really want to get in the weeds with the story, because it's really quite compelling. But I think what I wanted to kind of impart with all the alphas who are listening is that your child is vulnerable, and it's going to get scary. Let me just carry on with this a little bit more. Miserable Drawer 556 asked, granted the heaviness of the work that you do in connection with your real lived experiences, what does restoration or self-care look like for you? Bunsen Burner said that they believe in an integrative and community-based model that emphasizes the need for care by and for other people in your friend, family, and broader community. It's worth mentioning that having other sorts of dense communities of all ages are an excellent preventive and protective factor against trafficking. It's hard to groom someone who has 20 people deep integrated into their life who care for them profoundly. And here's where it gets scary, and probably the most ghastly pearl clutching part. Jenny Vaughn asked, did you ever report your abuser? Were they ever written texts or evidence you could use to put them away? Bunsen Burner responded, I have reported my main trafficker to the police, but it never went anywhere. It was more than a decade after it happened, and there was very little evidence to provide. Gut-wrenchingly, though, I've done my own research and learned that he currently works at Disney World.
Oh.
This again, dear listeners, is proof that kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, all of them need to be protected. And there are predators everywhere. Be vigilant. Have thoughtful conversations with the youth in your life. Perhaps consider hosting your local PD to provide a presentation on human trafficking at your Legion post. You know, American Legion Post 368 in Newport News, Virginia did, and Bravo Zulu to them. So there you go.
This is a super tough topic. And, you know, even that last part that you talked about, you know, just being vigilant. I mean, I got a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old, a 13-year-old son, you know, female, male, and then an 8-year-old daughter. And not that the, you know, I think traditionally you would say that the girls are more vulnerable to the boys. But then I think there's a misconception probably around that. However, like I've seen something that's like a large majority of things that happen to young girls happen when they spend the night away from the home, which is a terribly sad thing because, you know, me and my wife had this
part of
conversation.
growing up.
Yeah, we want them to be able to have fun at their friend's house. And so then that gets back into the community and knowing them. And even when you know somebody, you don't really know them. So I'll say, even people that go to our church, it's hard for me to let the girls like spend the night because of these things.
Yeah.
But also you want, like you were saying, Joe, you want to be able to allow them to have that, you know, that bubble of a childhood experiencing, you know, the things that make being a child. And so it's this interesting thing of being a parent, like protecting them from that world while also as they get older, starting to make them more aware of those things.
I think what really is unfortunate about this whole thing is that it's complex from top to bottom. And what I mean by that is the number one risk factor, you know, possibly other than being female, is being isolated. Anyone who's isolated, and that as a parent, finding that balance of be like, can your kid call you at 1 a.m. and say, I'm drunk and I need help, without you immediately going into punishment mode?
Yeah.
Can you immediately go in? How can I help you? What do you need from me? Because if your kid can't come to you with that stuff, they will find someone who will, even if it's the guy who gave them their phone number in the mall a month ago. I mean, you need to be the most approachable person in your kid's life. And
Yeah.
you know, there's no perfect parenting out there, but we have a rule in my house is that if I hear it from you, it's a different ball game than if I hear it from someone else. If I find out another way, it's a different type of punishment than if I hear it from you. If you walk in and say, I just drove the mule into the back of your truck. Okay, let's work on this. But if I walk out there and see it and I have to come in and interrogate every kid in the house to figure out what happened, then it's a different situation. So, and that you go from that, from the isolation side of things to the punishment side of things. Well, in my mind, I think that you should put whoever gets convicted of that type of crime in a room with a couple of military members and give them half an hour to do whatever they want to the poor fella, and or not poor fella. But when you do that, you increase the risk of them killing the people that they're using to keep from getting caught. So it's like, there's no answer that fits every situation. If you make it where if you get caught messing with kids, you die, they're going to just start killing kids. Like, it's for some reason, it doesn't make people not do it. It makes people do things worse. It doesn't, it's one of those things that drives me crazy because and it's a good thing, but I cannot wrap my mind around it in any way. There's no facet of it that makes me think, well, I could see why somebody would do that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And how do you punish someone like that without making it worse on their victims? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also, I think, Joe, you are absolutely right. And Adam, yeah, the fear is real. And I think it's so important just to have genuine conversations, open conversations, because I think the more taboo and secretive things are, I think the more children become curious and walk themselves into scarier situations than if you were to just demystify everything. And listen, we all have values, and every house is going to have a different approach as to how they apply those values in their families. And I'm not saying that you that you lose all your morals and values. I'm just saying that sometimes having education and knowing what is right and wrong and knowing what that looks like can be really helpful for our young children to make thoughtful decisions. So anyway, the American Legion did do a lot of work for working against human trafficking. There's also some really good literature on there too. So don't forget to check out legion.org for some of that details. Joe, what do you got?
3 teenage boys have been arrested in the killing of a Texas Marine veteran who was working as a rideshare driver to support his mother and sister, authorities said. The arrests are tied to the September 4th death of 28-year-old Kwok Jake Nguyen. Nguyen.
Yeah.
I'm so bad with this name. Who was found dead along a roadside after being shot, Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said. A 15-year-old has been charged with capital murder, while a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old face charges of tampering with evidence. These are straight-up children.
They're babies.
Straight-up children. All three were taken into custody in recent days and booked into the Harris County Juvenile Detention Center, Gonzalez said. Investigators believe the teen shot Nguyen. I'm going to have you voice that line. Just punch in, stole his vehicle and property and fled. Go ahead, Stacy.
Oh, Nguyen's
brother, Matthew, told local media that his brother had been driving for Uber to help support their mother and sister. The family immigrated to Houston from Vietnam several years ago. At the time he was driving at night, he had a rideshare from Uber. Matthew Nguyen?
That's it.
Nguyen said he picked up one customer and dropped him off downtown. After that, he still had some people in the car. Uber confirmed that's the last time they heard from him. On a lighter note, alphas, grab your balls. Okay. Whiplash. There's been a murder. Grab your balls. Your bowling balls, to clarify. Apparently, it's the key to a very, very long life. A World War II veteran, league bowler, celebrates his 102nd birthday. John Priest was born in the midst of Prohibition era, before the Great Depression. And now we're in the post-Great Depression, I guess.
Yeah.
After about 5 years, at about 5 years after the end of the First World War. He celebrated his 102nd birthday Sunday and continues to enjoy fishing, bowling, and golf. He doesn't really know the secret to longevity, but he has a theory. A lot of people ask me that, and I just tell them, you just keep moving. And I've heard that before. Everybody's got that one person in the family that you expect, or like you suspect lives off of spite.
Well, the body in motion stays in motion, though.
Exactly. And so, you just keep moving, he said with a grin. I don't know what it is. I try to stay active even now. That's why I'm bowling, he said. Priest of Coeur d'Alene has been part of the Monday Senior Mixed Singles League. Oh, snap. He's out there. He's out
Wheeling
there
and dealing.
bowling and trying to make it to second base.
He's putting all kinds of balls down lanes.
At the Sunset Bowling Center for more than 20 years. Priest was raised in Georgia, and at 16, he went into the Civilian Conservation Corps, a New Deal program of President Franklin D. Roosevelt that worked to counter the effects of the Depression.
You remember that, the New Deal, right?
Yeah, I remember the New Deal. This guy's so awesome. He's hanging, he's doing stuff on Roosevelt programs, and now he's bowling, trying to
pick up
pins
ladies
down and chase some tail.
God bless him.
Heck yeah, man. I believe it. You keep moving. Worked to counter the effects of the Depression by providing training and work opportunities for young men. They fought forest fires and planted trees, built campgrounds, worked on erosion control, and more. To this day, Americans still benefit from this work. Priest's experience in the CCC in Utah changed his life in more ways than one. That's where I met my wife, Maureen, he said. She was just 17 when they met. They rode each other for several years when Priest served in the Army, fighting in the European theater in World War II. I was in 5 major campaigns over there. Okay, John, that's just showing off.
I know, right? He's such a badass.
Just do like 2 so that I can feel like I'm still a man, I was in the artillery. Buddy, you were the artillery. He and Maureen married February 21st, 1946, once he returned stateside. And that was her D-Day.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm so sorry. They enjoyed nearly 70 years of marriage and countless bowling sessions, all before her death in 2015.
70 years
10
of
years of
marriage,
that has been
70 years.
Single.
That's incredible. Some people don't live that long. 70 years. Good for you, buddy. Happy birthday.
Heck yeah.
And keep striking those strikes. And going back to
the
murder.
I kind of moved on, but I whiplashed a little bit.
First of all, I have so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so curious why these young children, turn to violence, to steal a car. People automatically assume, the worst things about these kids, but there has to be an adult in their life or lack of adults monitoring them. This has to be a dire situation. Like why did they turn to this violence? And it's sad that this Marine veteran got caught in the crossfire, and he was only there trying to support his mom and brother. Like, gosh, there's no winners in this. These kids, their lives are ruined forever.
Well, it's kind of like the one that you read previously. I think, it comes back to the family. It comes back to the nuclear family. It comes back to the parents. It comes back to the community. It comes back to, every interaction in that young person's life matters, and every choice, that they make. And, I think what you're seeing is, whether it's, isolationism or whatever these kids, experience and endured, whatever was promoted, as the type of behavior and stereotypes and, what they don't have, what they're entitled to. You just have the personification of that taking place, whether in a vulnerable position or, acts of aggression and violence. And so
you grow up in a lake, you learn how to swim. You're a product of your environment.
I think that, same thing in like the healthcare industry. We look at the symptom masking medication, but then we say, well, did you really go to the root cause? Mm-hmm. And I think if you want to go to the root cause of a lot of these things, like you can go back to family life, and, that's a whole different discussion, but like what can be, how can you heal from the generational trauma, and How can you like raise up to be able to, have the values and standards, or be able to have the love, and the protection, that's required for you to grow up in this world. And I think that's where we're challenged right now.
Yeah.
Well, I just know that I do want to be here when my great grandkids are born, and if bowling is what does it, then maybe I should make my way down to the lanes. What do they say? What do they say when they're being super casual about it? Do they say to the lanes?
I think people say bowling alley. I don't know if it gets all slick like that, Joe. But hey, I would recommend getting your own pair of bowling shoes. You don't want to wear the public ones and get yourself some fungus in the toes.
I just need one.
Nothing like athlete's foot. Adam, what do you got?
Hopefully it's not a murder or human trafficking.
My 15-year-old, or almost 15, she came home and she said, "Hey, you need to fill out this form. I'm trying out for the bowling team at school." And
I love that.
What?
I love
got
that.
a bowling team? That's great. I'm all for that.
Yeah,
You're
my
gonna
buddy
have to
does
rent
curling.
Curling, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Attention, Washington-based alphas. New changes to disabled veteran parking rules in Washington are now in effect as of October 1st, 2025. Veterans with a qualifying discharge of 70% or higher disability rating and a federally defined service animal can access special parking benefits. Eligible veterans can apply for blue placards, veteran parking plates, or a disabled veteran tab. It's important to always carry your veteran with disabilities parking privilege ID. To apply, veterans must complete the disabled parking application for veterans and include a letter from the U.S. Armed Forces or the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs indicating a 70% or higher disability rating. Applications can be submitted at a vehicle licensing office or mailed to the Department of Licensing in Olympia. Expect placards, plates, or tabs within 7 to 10 days. Oh, that's pretty quick, I would think. And the ID card within 2 to 3 weeks. Parking privileges need renewal every 5 years, while plates and tabs renew annually.
Here in South Carolina, we don't have anything like this, but we can get like disabled veteran plates. And if you're 100% service connected, then you don't pay taxes on your car. But I think this is really, really interesting. Joe?
So on my end, I like... Okay, I think that a lot of veterans, especially us, we see kind of all steps of this. Sometimes veterans are put on pedestals that are not good for them. But I will say I do like the pedestal of having a nice veteran parking spot when I go to Home Depot. I mean, it's not bad. Sometimes, you're not feeling like all that walking, and those veteran parking spots are great. The only thing that bothers me about this is that federally defined service animal. Somebody's going to mess this up. Somebody is going to have a peacock or something, or
How
a
do you
mini
mean?
pig.
How do you mean?
Someone is going to abuse this. They're going to, and
Oh,
no one is really going to read up what is
peacock.
meant by federal. Does that mean, is that Assistance Dogs International? Is that ADI certified? Like what does federally define? No one's going to look it up, is my point.
I want to also throw out here as well. Most people with disabilities that require having a placard have a disability that precludes them from parking that far away, and there's a reason why they have to park up front. And there are people who are 70% disabled who are still able-bodied. My question here is, if somebody who is still able-bodied who can make a longer trek, taking a spot with somebody who needs a reasonably shorter distance to travel, like is it going to compete with people with higher levels of disability? Does that make sense?
I know it does make sense. Yeah. I mean, I imagine that these won't be taking the place of, I imagine these will be like right after handicap spots or something, or kind of like where they normally will put like pregnancy or like the police parking. It might be like an extra row away or something.
Are you aware of the national level changes that still need to accommodate veterans with disabilities?
No,
not me. But before you do that, I do want to tell you one quick story to talk about how far removed common sense is from this whole process. I went in, I have an above knee prosthetic. I was in a wheelchair at the time. I don't always use a wheelchair now. But I went into the DMV to get a handicap placard, and the lady said, "I'm so sorry. I need a doctor's note saying that your injury is permanent."
Are you?
I'm not
What?
joking. She
Wow.
knew how ridiculous it was.
That is terrible.
But that is legit. It was so ridiculous I wasn't even mad. You know when something's just so dumb,
I'm sorry.
and you're
I'm
like,
sorry. Just one more time. You were going to do what? And she
get
was
a
looking at your
handicap
leg?
placard. And so there's permanent handicap placards, and then there's the temporary. And in order to get a permanent one, you apparently have to have a letter from a doctor saying that your injury is permanent. I don't know if I looked part lizard when I came in or what, but it's
your
not
Chia.
growing back.
Like, she
I'm
should
going to
have
call
the
you Joe
authority
Chia Worley.
Joe Chia.
in that moment to be like, I witnessed his permanent injury in person. I have the authority to validate that. They should have that as an option.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
not have to justify.
I agree.
missing.
I agree. This was early enough on that I wasn't jaded. It would feel dehumanizing now, but at the time it was kind of funny. It was like when the guy stole my wheelchair in the airport to push his bags in. It was just funny more than anything. Now it's like, it's tiresome. I don't know how to describe it. These things aren't funny
Wait, hold
anymore.
on. I feel like you just glossed that over. Somebody took your wheelchair to bring their bags in at the airport?
So, really early on, I had an orange wheelchair with canted wheels. You'd had to have seen it. The thing was a beauty. And it was as obvious as a lowrider truck that it's not it wasn't a Delta issued,
Right.
you know. Yeah. I land, they pull my wheelchair up to the top, and unbeknownst to me, the stewardess said, your wheelchair is up here. And I go out there and it's gone. And she said it was just here. She goes up to the front and says, yeah, an older gentleman just walked by pushing it with his bags in the seat of it. And I was not even mad. I just wanted to meet the guy. Like I just want to look the man in the face with that audacity, because like, I just wanted to see who it was. I wasn't going to yell at him. I wasn't going to make him like, feel bad. I just wanted to see.
Was he remorseful?
I don't know. I never got.
Oh, you didn't.
I think they thought I was joking. Like I just wanted to see the human being that would do that. Sir, if you were listening, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
That's some gall.
Yeah. All right. Well, for those of you interested in learning more, you can reference the link in our show notes for the article about the new disabled veteran parking rules that take in effect in Washington. Maybe help share that with some of the folks that you know that could benefit from that.
Yeah. If there's something happening in your area, let us know too. We'll make that announcement so we can get the word out. Yeah. Alphas, thanks for listening. And a reminder that we are hosted on Spotify. If you follow us on Spotify, you can find both the audio and the video versions of this podcast, so you can see Joe and Adam's beautiful faces. You can also subscribe to our podcast, and you can rate and comment on our podcast all in one place. Rate us. We need all those stars. We need all the high ratings. We need all the good feedback. You can find us on Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're there in your ear like little worms. Subscribe to our newsletter. You can send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We'll see you next week, y'all.
Stay frosty.
See ya.